Hi everyone, so my name is Ria and today I'll be discussing the biology of aging, and then we'll be looking at the key questions. So why do we age? We'll be looking at what factors cause the process of aging, and also we'll be taking a look at some regenerative medicine and the applications in potentially providing solutions to reversing the process of aging. So before we get into it, I'm going to show you guys it's a bit bizarre, but it's a real thing that people do. Trigger warning, there's a bit of blood on the next slide, but so vampire facials, no, they have nothing to do with actual vampires, but they are in fact a regenerative technique or therapy that people use for their skin. It rejuvenates the skin, and how it works is that you extract the patient's own blood and you centrifuge it. So you put it into a centrifuge and it separates the blood components into the plasma and the rest of the blood. The plasma is kept aside, and then from the rest of the blood you extract platelets, and those platelets are combined with the plasma to create PRP, or platelet-rich plasma, and then that is then injected back into your skin, or it's like smothered all over your face. And what that does is that it tricks your brain into thinking that you're injured, the face is injured, so the platelets would basically call lots of growth factors like collagen and elastin back to your face, and it essentially creates a really youthful looking appearance to your skin. But what I would like to say is why? So what causes people to do this, and what can explain the need for such processes? So that is none other than the process of aging. So it can be described, it's a universal process that can be defined as a gradual degradation of the cellular and physiological function of the body. And there are many factors that contribute to the process of aging, but they can mainly be categorized into two categories. One is endogenous and the other one is exogenous. We'll be looking at more endogenous stuff because that occurs internally within our own bodies, and it's similar, much more similar for every human being than exogenous factors are. So those are things that happen in our environment, like climate change, smoking, UV radiation, how much sunlight are you getting, and that's really individual to every one of you. But endogenous factors are things that occur in everyone's body, so they're more easy to talk about. So we'll be going through telomere attrition, loss of proteostasis, and then stem cell exhaustion. And many of these, there's a lot, but they do overlap, so we might end up talking about more. So the first thing that can accelerate or cause the process of aging is called telomere attrition. And basically, at the ends of our chromosomes, there are telomeres, which are basically random sequences of DNA, which act as protective caps for the rest of our genome. So, and the issue arises is that with each cell division that occurs in our somatic cells, like our skin cells, in fact, the telomeres shorten each and every time. So we lose per division 500 to 200 base pairs per replication. And that sounds like a lot, but they do end up lasting us our entire lifetime. So, and then this becomes worse. So as our chronological age increases, with each replication, our genes start to become exposed. So the blue thing sort of decreases until it becomes nothing. And when our genes are exposed, that means when transcription and translation occurs in protein synthesis, the proteins that are being made in our cells are essentially mutated, and they're really dangerous for our body. So essentially our proteins, they can't perform any correct cellular function. That can really accelerate and make you more prone to getting more age-related diseases when you grow up, like Alzheimer's, Huntington's disease. They all factor into this sort of idea of telomere attrition. The next one that we'll be talking about is loss of proteostasis. And then, so this one might seem a bit familiar. So protein synthesis, I think, is arguably one of the most important cellular processes that occur in our body. So proteo means protein, and stasis means keeping the same. So it can be defined as a regulation and ability to correctly synthesize proteins in our body. And it's a large network, but I could mainly we can summarize them as there's three main sort of regulatory machinery that we can put them into. The first one we all kind of know about is ribosomes. They essentially synthesize the polypeptide by bringing in complementary tRNAs, which have an amino acid attached to them, and they essentially build the polypeptide chain. Chaperones, which essentially help guide and build the tertiary and quaternary structures of our polypeptides, which turn into proteins. And that shape, again, is really important for how it carries out its function. So if that shape isn't correct, it could lead to a mutated protein. And then the third one is protein degradation machinery. These are things like lysosomes and proteasomes, which can digest unwanted and mutated proteins in our cells, which is really important because we don't want to accumulate all that waste in our cells. And then the third and final one that we'll be talking about is stem cell exhaustion. So we do have a rough idea about what stem cells are. So they are undifferentiated cells which have the capability to differentiate or specialize in many other different cell types. So I've put one up here, but do any of you guys know two more potencies of stem cells? Yes. And then one more. Yes, pluripotent and totipotent are the other ones. So and our stem cells from birth are really different to the stem cells that we have in our own bodies as adults. So our adult stem cells are multipotent, which means they have the capability to differentiate and specialize into a very specific lineage of cells. That could be epithelial cells in our endodermis, in our skin, or they could be blood stem cells found in the bone marrow. And then the thing that I want to get at is contrary to popular belief, adult stem cells are in fact not immortal. They cannot divide indefinitely. In fact, a stem cell's regenerative capacity declines as we age. So as our chronological age increases, the diagram shows that, so from birth we have around 10 billion stem cells, but as you can see, within just 12 years, that number more than halves. And we live the rest of our lives just off of those stem cells. So that explains why older people are much more prone to getting disease, and it takes a much longer time for their bodies to actually get rid of that pathogen, because their bodies aren't able to produce the specialized cells needed to eradicate them. And then this can also be seen in like wounds as well. So if you compare, like, let's say if a 12-year-old gets like a scratch or something, or compared to a 60-year-old, that 60-year-olds, their specialized epithelial cells would take a much longer time in order to heal back the wound, because of just the amount of stem cells that are left. So their capacity to regenerate really declines. Okay, so that was the three main ones that I thought were important to discuss. And then, so what now? We've looked at what factors cause aging. Now, what applications can we use to help us maybe solve this issue? So with each cell division, we are getting older as we speak. So right now in our bodies, as we're sitting here, our somatic cells are constantly dividing. So is there really a way to reverse aging? Is it really possible? And then, so the field of regenerative medicine offers to provide new types of supplements, drugs, and therapies that could potentially slow down the rate at which we age. There's nothing right now that can completely stop it, but you can very much slow it down by, the simple ones would be like our lifestyle, the way we eat, drink, how much we go outside. But the more complex ones I want to discuss in the next slide. So we have telomerase supplements. So as in the first slide, if you remember, telomeres are that random sequence of DNA. So telomerase is the enzyme that can extend them. And this is super, like, a kind of very big breakthrough, because natural telomerase activation markers have been discovered in a type of plant called astragalus in 2008. So the compounds in the root can activate telomerase in our human genome. This is both good and bad, because again, if that does happen, it could lead to cancerous cells, because cancerous cells have telomerase. Essentially, that they will never die, because the telomerase will keep on adding that extension, so the cell can never die. It will just make the cancer even worse. So we would need to really play with this thing quite specifically if we don't want to cause more negative things to occur. The next one is proteostasis regulating drugs. The main one is amyloid targeting drugs, and these reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. So amyloids are basically accumulations of beta-pleated sheets within our cells, and this increases the risk of developing Alzheimer's when you're much older. So these drugs kind of target those amyloids and reduce the risk of you getting it. The next ones are chaperone modulators. Again, as we talked about before, the chaperones basically help creating the tertiary and quaternary structures. So these basically help the chaperones as you age even more to make sure that no mutations occur and your body is functioning properly. And then autophagy modulators are also another one. It's basically like cell recycling. It just helps to make sure that all the mutated proteins, any mutated organelles are engulfed and basically recycled and eliminated from the cell. And then the last and most controversial one that I'm really talking about is stem cell therapy. So embryonic stem cells, I think you guys should have an idea that they are totipotent, so they can differentiate into a multitude of different cells and make up our whole body. But we can use them in transplantation. So if we nurture them in labs, curate them, we can actually sort of inject them back into patients who, for like a multitude of things like cancer research and burns and wounds and things like that. But the thing is that when you extract those embryonic stem cells and pluripotent stem cells, you end up killing the embryo. So on one hand, it's like you are killing an embryo, but you're also helping a person essentially live a bit longer. So it's an ethical dilemma, and it's been widely debated, but this is also potential therapy that can be used to increase your lifespan. And yeah, so those are all the things I wanted to talk about. So, thank you. Oh, any questions?
Do you think aging is actually a problem, or do you think it's more of like the cosmetic reasons that people want to reverse aging?
That's a good question. I don't think it's a problem, but it's something that people are becoming increasingly concerned about. Like, I think maybe because due to like lots of social factors, like, oh, I need to look good all the time. I need to make sure, people are doing so much to take care of their bodies. I'm not doing anything. And for some people, it's genetic. Like, you could age much more faster than your peers. It's all down to your human genome, like your individual genetic code. So it's like social factors, but also like biological factors that could impact the rate at which we age.
Do you think aging is a disease or like just a normal human process?
Well, it does cause your cells to degrade and diminish over time. So it can be classified as a disease because it essentially degrades your body and your function of everything sort of declines over time. So it is a disease, but it's a universal process that every sort of like mammal and thing goes through. So
If you think about the NHS and how like life expectancy has increased over the past 50 or so years, and that means that more people are getting older, sure, but they're also more people are getting cancer, arthritis, Alzheimer's, and that so majority of patients in NHS hospitals are usually geriatric patients, like older patients. So if we do pursue these treatments of extending lifespan, would that cause more strain on the health system?
I think yes, definitely long term that would definitely impact. I think the small scale things that you can do, like the PRP treatments, those ones happen in like dermatology clinics, so they're not, and they can happen privately as well. I don't think that's the small kind of things that you can do are not a burden to the NHS, but definitely the big ones like the stem cells, the embryonic, acquiring those definitely require a lot of money and things like that. So it would have a burden long term.
Do you think these therapies are worth it? Because obviously increasing people's life expectancy is good to a point, but overpopulation is also a problem in the world. So do you think it's worth it to invest in these therapies?
I think to a certain extent yes, because not just in extending someone's lifespan, but also if someone has cancer or something, or someone has Alzheimer's or any other age-related disease like Huntington's and anything like that, you can use stem cell therapy not just to extend your lifespan, but to actually get rid of those diseases. So I think if we use it for those kinds of things, it would help in that way, I think, better than just increasing your lifespan in general, but getting rid of the diseases in that way.
Okay. So aging is a natural process. So do you think it's morally or ethically correct to do something to alter that process? So any of those therapies or treatments?
Well, ideally, no. It's not very ethical, especially with like the IPSC, like when you induce like those kinds of things and you end up killing like embryos. Ideally not, but it's a thing that's becoming increasingly a concern for many people. I think the younger generation more so, but yeah.
Like, you can have the perfect diet, but I've seen people online like try to modify their lifestyle, like the perfect amount of exercise, perfect diet, perfect lifestyle, like lack of stress, but they still look like quite old. So do you think there are also like external factors that contribute?
Yes, definitely. There's so many external factors. We only discussed the endogenous ones, like internal. Exogenous is different for every single like human being, like because it's your genetic code, right? So like the main ones that I know about is like again UV radiation, how much exposure to sunlight, smoking, anything that basically damages your genetic code would like accelerate aging. So like eating as well. And I think specific to every single person. So a person can do everything but still struggle to maintain like their skin or anything like that.